Friedrich Nietzsche's statement, "God is dead," is one of the most famous and misunderstood ideas in philosophy. At first glance, it might sound like a triumphant declaration of atheism or a rejection of religion. But Nietzsche's real message was far more profound and far more unsettling. He wasn't celebrating the death of God. He was diagnosing a crisis in Western culture. The decline of religious belief wasn't just about losing faith in a divine being. It meant the collapse of the moral and philosophical foundation that had shaped Europe for centuries. Nietzsche saw this as both a danger and an opportunity. The danger was that without God, society might plunge into nihilism, believing in nothing and finding life meaningless. The opportunity was that humanity could now create its own values, free from outdated dogmas. This series will explore 4 key lessons from Nietzsche's "God is dead" idea, revealing why it remains so relevant today. 1. God is dead was never about religion. It's about the collapse of meaning. When Nietzsche declared God is dead, he wasn't making a theological argument. He was observing a cultural shift, the slow erosion of absolute moral values that had been propped up by Christianity for over 1,000 years. The Enlightenment, scientific progress, and critical philosophy had weakened the grip of religion on society. People were beginning to live as if God didn't matter, even if they still claimed to believe. Nietzsche's real concern was what would happen next. If the old moral framework was disappearing, what would replace it? Would people cling to hollow traditions, or would they face the terrifying freedom of a world without divine commandments? He saw 2 possible outcomes. Either society would descend into nihilism, believing in nothing, or individuals would rise to the challenge and create their own meaning. This wasn't just about rejecting religion. It was about recognizing that humanity could no longer rely on external authority to dictate right and wrong. The death of God was an invitation, or perhaps a demand, for people to become the creators of their own values. 2. The crisis of nihilism, when nothing matters anymore. The most immediate consequence of God's death, Nietzsche warned, was the rise of nihilism, the belief that life has no inherent meaning. Without a divine order, many people would feel lost, adrift in a universe that no longer provided clear answers. Some would try to fill the void with substitutes: nationalism, political ideologies, consumerism, or even new dogmas disguised as progress. But Nietzsche saw these as weak attempts to escape the truth, that there is no ready-made purpose handed down from above. The real challenge was to resist the temptation of easy answers and instead confront the emptiness head-on. Nihilism wasn't the end goal for Nietzsche. It was a stage to pass through, a test of strength. Only by facing the abyss could individuals discover their own power to define meaning. This is why Nietzsche's philosophy is often seen as a call to courage. It's not enough to simply reject old beliefs. One must also have the will to build something new in their place. Those who fail this test will live in quiet despair, clinging to illusions. Those who pass it will emerge stronger, crafting their own purpose in a world without preordained rules. 3. The birth of the Übermensch, creating your own values. Nietzsche's solution to nihilism was the concept of the Übermensch, or Overman, a figure who embraces the death of God not as a loss, but as a liberation. The Übermensch doesn't mourn the absence of divine meaning. Instead, they see it as an opportunity to invent their own. This isn't about selfishness or ego. It's about taking full responsibility for one's existence. Most people, Nietzsche argued, prefer to follow the herd, obeying societal norms out of habit or fear. The Übermensch, however, breaks free from these chains, daring to live by self-made principles. This is an incredibly difficult task because it requires absolute honesty and relentless self-examination. There are no guarantees, no cosmic justice, no predetermined path, just the raw challenge of existence. Nietzsche wasn't promising happiness. He was offering something deeper: authenticity. The Übermensch is an artist of life, shaping their own destiny rather than waiting for salvation. This idea was Nietzsche's answer to the crisis of meaning, not a return to old myths, but the creation of new ones. 4. The eternal struggle: why Nietzsche's warning still matters today. More than a century after Nietzsche's death, his warning feels more relevant than ever. We live in a world where old institutions are crumbling, where traditional beliefs are questioned, and where many people feel adrift in a sea of conflicting ideologies. Some respond by retreating into fundamentalism, desperate for certainty. Others embrace a shallow relativism, declaring that all values are equal, which Nietzsche would argue is just another form of nihilism. His challenge remains: will we face the void with courage, or will we hide from it? Modern culture is full of distractions: endless entertainment, political tribalism, consumerism, all of which can be ways of avoiding the hard question of meaning. Nietzsche forces us to ask, are we living deliberately, or are we just going through the motions? The death of God wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where humanity must grow up and take responsibility for its own future. The choice is ours. Will we succumb to despair, or will we rise to the challenge and become the creators of our own destiny? Nietzsche's "God is dead" is not just a philosophical statement, it's a mirror held up to modern society. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that we can no longer rely on ancient traditions to tell us how to live. But within that truth lies an incredible opportunity. The death of old beliefs isn't the end of meaning, it's the birth of true freedom. The question is whether we have the courage to seize it. Will we drift through life following inherited scripts? Or will we take Nietzsche's challenge seriously and become the authors of our own existence? The answer to that question will define not just our individual lives, but the future of humanity itself. Thank you for watching, and remember, the world is what you make of it.